Welcome back to stage 16 of the Giro d'Italia of 2013 as the riders head towards Ivrea in Piedmont. There's the overall young rider standing, and that's developing into an absolutely cracking race between Carlos Betancourt and Rafael Majka. Now 5 seconds between them with Betancourt in that white jersey for the first time, and Majka having ceded it despite a very strong finish. Those bonus seconds playing into the hands of Carlos Betancourt. His fast finish on Sunday means that he's in the white jersey. Wilco Kelderman is up the road in the break. 4 minutes and 14 seconds was the last time check that we got, so perhaps he has ambitions to close the gap, but of course his presence in the break is going to make it tough for those breakaway riders to get a huge advantage heading to that last hill. Here's the point standings. Mark Cavendish, it's his birthday today. At the moment he's got a very handy advantage over Cadel Evans, and the questions coming in thick and fast on the Twitter feed. At DQ Sport is the handle, and Sean, people want to know, can Mark Cavendish get over this hill? Can he perhaps add to his points total today?
Yes, that is the question, and it's a difficult one. Percentage-wise, it looks a little bit difficult, you know, 9%, and there's a maximum of 13% for a short period. And as you go on to the summit, which is just over the 6 kilometres, 6.2, 5 kilometres, and the last bit is 7.5, so it is going to be a struggle. But we did see Mark Cavendish when he won a stage there last week. He got over the hill very well, maybe not as steep, so I think you know, in the end they will try. And I suppose when you look at the breakaway here, the advantage is for a lot of the teams, especially Mark Cavendish's team, Omega Pharma Quick-Step. The general classification, there's a man up there, Damiano Caruso, who's at 9.57 in 18th place. They're going to allow the team of race leaders to control that, and they'll just sit back. But if he wasn't up there, well then Astana would be in a great position, because everybody else is a long way out in general classification, but he's going to be the problem man, and for that reason we see Astana's got to keep on chasing here, and it's going to, you know, make it interesting. The advantage at the moment, you know, is nothing out of control for a stage victory. I think if some of the other teams take it up, like Omega Pharma Quick-Step, in the end they could close this one down, and it's possibly the tactic for Mark Cavendish, but I think we'll have to wait and see, because Astana are controlling the situation for the moment, so they're going to allow them to do that because they have to do it. They have got the race leader's jersey, so leave them just walk away on the front for the moment. And with the distance from the finish all the time, you know, at around the 90 kilometres to go, well, plenty of time to look at the situation a bit later on into the stage.
So could a long hard chase for Astana today have implications a little bit later in the week?
Well, I think it will be a long day for them when you have the men up front there, you know, chasing all day, riding on the front all day. It's going to, you know, fatigue is going to be the problem at the end of the end of this week, at the third week of the tour. They could, you know, find their men a bit more tired than they would like to have them. And the situation they're in today, you know, they would prefer if they didn't have to chase as much, and they could allow this break to go on. And if it was going on much further out the breakaway, well then there would be other teams possibly to control it, because as I said, the other classifications, the young jersey classement as well, Kelderman, he's a long ways off in that, but still, if you allow the break to take 15, 17 minutes, which is the case on the final week when you have the guys who are really down in general classification, you know, we could see AG2R taking it up, we could see Saxo Bank taking it up, because they're, you know, very much up in that classification. It's all to fight for between the two men from those teams. But it's Astana's going to have to do it here, because the general classification is the first one everyone look at, and they will say, well, Astana's got to chase this, with Caruso being a danger man there in 18th position.
Well, the bunch are all lined out, 4 minutes and 6 seconds, and it's kind of holding steady at that. Took a long time for the break to establish up that first hill called the Mont Cenis, but eventually it managed to forge clear. Riders came up, and now it's set to be a long day in the saddle for these riders, with 238 kilometres in total for the riders today. In the final week, some people say that's well, it's longer than they really ought to be asked to do, but that's what makes them great. It's what makes the race great. A little bit of bad news, unfortunately. Just heard in the last few minutes that Taylor Finney from the BMC team has had to retire from the race, waiting official confirmation on that. But if that's confirmed, it's massive disappointment for Taylor, who worked so hard to make it to the finish last year, and his struggle to finish last year was an epic tale in itself. Of course, he wore the pink jersey last year, in the race, but well, it's just been a slog from right from the get-go, and we understand it's saddle sores that have caused his retirement, and once the saddle sores get you, Sean, there's not a thing you can do about it.
Not much you can do in a stage race if you have them for a number of days, and you usually have them coming on for 3 or 4 days previous, and then they just get real sore. And when you look at what's left in this race with six stages to go, well, there's no way you're going to make it to the finish of this Giro, so unfortunately you have to get out. And Davis Finney, for me, it's a disappointing Giro. I thought we would see him a bit more active, and BMC Racing, they haven't been in the breaks at all, which is surprising. They have Cat 11s up there, we understand that, so they're probably playing all their cards, but we had Daniel Oss, who was away in a break one day, but apart from that, they haven't been present. Maybe the team tactic is to keep everybody for the final days and just look after Cat 11s, because they feel that the general classification is very much there for the team and for Cat 11s.
From Cadell's point of view, is there any advantage to have a rider in the break, or would it just be different opportunities for the team? And this is why we see Fabio Fellini making his little step ahead of the bunch. We don't see this as much anymore. This used to happen quite a lot in the old days, but the bunch just setting a steady tempo. Fellini took the opportunity to move ahead and say hello to some friends and family on the hill.
And that's something we had years ago in the Tour of France, and a lot in the Tour of France, but also in the Giro, in the earlier part of the stage. You could go on and just say hello to your family if you're going through the town or village that you were living in or born in. But now in the earlier part of the race, like, the racing is so aggressive. The first 60-80 kilometers, it can be just full on. They can be doing plus 50 kilometers per hour average, so there's not an opportunity to do that. If you go back 15 plus years ago, Tour of Italy, Tour of France, not usually the flat stages or the mountain stages, where the mountains were on the very end, you would race a little bit more easy and they just ride along maybe for 60-80 kilometers at a casual pace. And for that reason, the rider from the area could just go on ahead and just say hello to his supporters and his family.
That's not to say it was easier back then. It was just a different type of hard, was it? Or it was faster in the end game then?
Well, I think the racing was a bit easier, because when it starts out like that on a stage where it's going to ride at an easier pace, you see it immediately in the first 5 kilometers, and if that's happening, well, then you can see that it's going to be like that for quite a while. And then you have the opportunity, if you are going through your hometown area, home city, well, you can go on ahead and say hello to everybody. But now I think the race is more aggressive, and the racing is definitely harder now, because after a big mountain day, from kilometre 0, they just go on the attack, trying to get to the break immediately. I remember my days, with Bernardino, he would say, well, guys, we had 2 hard days in the mountains now, there's nobody attacking for the first 60 kilometres, and that was law. And there was no one going to fight Bernard. No, and anybody that did try it, I remember there was one new professional that did 1 year, went in the attack, and he rode up to me and said, you're not allowed to do that. If you try and do that again, you will not be allowed to win a race. And it was immediately all over and back to normal, where we rode along at a casual pace for the first 70 or 80 kilometres.
It was under. Speaking of Peloton Patron, there was lots of talk about them slowing little piano on the Mont Cenis on Sunday afternoon. And the question was who had actually organised it. Well, we understand that there was a little bit of a contretemps between Roberto Reverberi of the Bardiani squad and Pippo Pozzato. So it would appear, at least that's just a rumour, but Pozzato had kind of adopted the role of controlling things and deciding that they would just take it easy up Mont Cenis. And of course that didn't suit Reverberi. Of course he had Perazzi, who wanted to get into the break, and 1 or 2 others as well. And eventually Perazzi, the dam did burst close to the top. Those riders rode to the top, and indeed they kept riding after that, and that was the early break of the day. So it wasn't entirely controlled in the same way, but that could well be the answer to the question of who is the Peloton patron of the Giro d'Italia. Pippo Pozzato of Lampre Merida. 22 riders out front, 4 minutes and 3 seconds. You got confirmation on your screen just a few moments ago that Taylor Phinney has indeed retired, making it 29 retirements from the Giro d'Italia, and more to come, I can assure you, in this final week. Such a shame for riders that have made it this far, but always it becomes even more and more difficult as every day goes on. Navradauskas at the front, the Lithuanian rider who took victory in stage 11 and still appears full of fight. Eris Kopecky and Jose Herrada from the Movistar team are in here. Peter Weening up the road a few days ago from Orica Greenedge. Christian Meyer, his teammate also. Greg Abol of Vacansoleil. Jose Serpa of Lampre Merida. Verdugo of Euskaltel. Wilco Kelderman, who kicked the whole thing off for Blanco. The aforementioned Stefano Perazzi. Selon Rodriguez from Androni. Danny Pate from Sky. Ludvigsen from Argus Shimano. Rory Sutherland from Saxo Tinkoff. Rabatini and De Luca from Vinny Fantini. Atapuma and Chalaput from Colombia. Caruso from Cannondale. Zardini is there for Bardiani. And Francis de Grief from Lotto Belisol. Best placed of these riders, Damiano Caruso. He's 18th overall at 9 minutes and 57 seconds. As Sean said, that's one good reason that this group can't be allowed to take an enormous lead on the stage. At Cycling Mole says on Twitter that there's absolutely no chance of Cavendish getting over that hill, so there's no reason for Quick-Step to chase today. Said no point Quick-Step riding, hill too steep for Cav, and a massive break is good for him in red. Would you agree? It will be interesting as we go straight further on. I think Cavendish is, after improving climbing in this race, in the earlier part maybe he wasn't getting up some of them climbs as well, but he did put in some good performance when he won his stage, and there was quite a difficult climb. It looks a little bit difficult for him when you look at the percentage and the distance, 6 kilometers. It's probably just that percentage-wise, distance-wise, a little bit too much for him. And but if it comes to a situation where the brakes look like to be coming back, we could see him having a go and trying to hang in there, because the points classification is certainly not sealed as yet, because with the days we have to come with Cat 11s in the mountain stages, he is going to be the problem man for Mark Cavendish. So they try and get some points in that classification if they can, and if it comes a bit easier from where they don't have to ride all day or for a long time on the front with the team, well then I wouldn't be surprised if we see him try to keep Mark Cavendish on the front of this climb, which a bit over 36 kilometres to go, 35.7 kilometres, and see can he get over the climb for the sprint. But take it up all day, I don't think they want to do that. But the situation is working out real well from the moment, because with Astana having to chase because of the men up in the breakaway in general classification, we will see that they will be thinking the front later on. Well, there's Mark Cavendish on the right hand side in the red jersey of points classification leader, the man from Omega Pharma Quick-Step, sporting a red helmet now. Black, of course, in the early days of this race, and he'll be protected by his Omega Pharma Quick-Step teammates. Now, if he can make it over that hill, then well, he's going to give himself a great opportunity for the perfect 28th birthday present. Mike Hanley says that he shares a birthday with Mark Cavendish. Shout out for him. Not that we're doing birthday requests all day, but hi Mike. And one question we got a little earlier, John Stringer says, my wife wants to know if Mark Cavendish could ever be a GC contender if he put his mind to it. She thinks it's his secret ambition.
Well, GC contender for the Tour of Belgium, yes. But for the Tour of Italy, I don't think it will happen, because the big mountains, it's always going to be his problem. Again, he is so good in the sprint. If you start training specifically to get up the mountains, well then they're going to lose that real sprinting edge. And why do that? Because the risk of not being a great climber is very big, where he is the best sprinter in the world. So continue on at what he's doing and win stages, green jersey. And I suppose there's one thing, this classic races, that's something he hasn't really contested in the last number of years, where I think he's capable of doing a bit more in the classics. But if you can win 4 or 5 stages in the Tour of Italy, a number of them in the Tour of France, win a green jersey in the Tour of France, well then your season is good.
You were a sprinter. Did you notice a change as you got opportunities in the races?
Yes, I certainly, when I started becoming a better climber, pushing for to win general classification, like in the Paris-Nice, Tour of Switzerland, Tour of Spain. Certainly I lost my sprinting edge. It was the case for a lot of other riders as well. Jalabert, in the beginning of his career, he was very fast, and then when he started becoming more all-rounder, he lost that edge in the sprint.
So 4 minutes and 31 seconds is the advantage for those 22 riders up front. Just over 50 miles remaining in this 16th stage. Join us for the next part after these. It's stage 16 of the Giro d'Italia of 2013. The riders are making their way from France, from Valois in the Savoy region, to Ivrea in Piedmont. This is the scene on the front of the peloton, with Vincenzo Nibali's Astana squad controlling the pace. Little bit of moisture on the lens indicates that it's very dull and overcast, and there's a definite threat of rain in the air. Not anything to concern the riders at the moment, but well, their hearts will sink if it gets any worse, because well, the weather has just been absolutely appalling throughout this Giro so far. They're all out watching the group up front. 22 riders have 4 3/4 minutes now, 4 minutes and 44 seconds. And there's been a little bit of activity on the front of the group in the last few minutes. Emanuele Sella of the Androni Giocattoli squad tried a little attack, and that one has been controlled. Meanwhile, back in the group, Astana tap it out. So 4 minutes and 44 seconds for the 22 riders up front, ahead of the peloton led by the Astana squad, as the school children around Italy come out to celebrate the passage of La Corsa Rosa. And what a wonderful scene it is. What a wonderful pageantry is presented by this event, and for this event, by the people at the roadside each year. Vincenzo Nibali, another stage to be got through. All his eyes will be focused on Thursday and that time trial. Following that, 2 absolute doozies of stages in the Dolomites on Friday and Saturday, and it all concludes with what should be a straightforward run to circuit finish in Brescia on Sunday afternoon. Pirazzi is up front in the break. He's the man in the blue jersey of Mountains classification leader. The man from Bardiani. Valvoli has led that classification now for more than a week, and has strengthened his grip on it by adding 9 points at the top of Col du Mont-Cenis at the start of today's stage. 22 riders up front. And now almost 5 minutes. As I said, Emanuele Sella attacked a few minutes ago. He was controlled, and it's not, he's attacked the break about 10 kilometers before that as well. Kelderman and Navradouskas called him to account on that occasion. So it's unusual tactics, a little bit early maybe for the attacks to be coming in the breaks. A surprising move, especially on a flat road from Sella.
It certainly is. When you look at the distance, just under 80 kilometers to go, and nothing really for a long ways into this stage. That final climb we talked about, you know, that's 220 kilometers, so it's, you know, it's a long way down the road, and it's a flat, pretty much flat run to the climb. I don't understand why he's attacking, because the breakaway at the moment just under 5 minutes. They, you know, they need to keep on working, but you know, the climb itself, it's a 6 kilometer climb. And they should be able to do something on that. If they want to go for a stage victory and really shake it up, that's where you've got to do it. Of course, they've all sorts of incidental preems along the way that aren't part of any classification competition. Little towns and villages often put a few quid together and create a preem. So maybe that he was just thinking about taking those opportunities. A few of the other riders would be that concerned with it. Well, unless there's a big preem, and sometimes the notification comes in the morning to the team directors that there's a special preem going through a town. We haven't heard about any of those, and it would need to be a big one, because if you're going to go out there and ride for 15-20 kilometers, it would certainly want to be more than the normal intermediate sprint where the winner gets 500 euros. And so otherwise, like,
he'd hardly need to attack. He could just go to the front of the group, kind of thing, couldn't he?
Well, again, if there is a bigger preem, of course he would have to get out, because there's some better sprinters in that group of 22 riders. so he'd need to get away a bit of a number of kilometres out. But I don't understand what's the reason going here at the moment. When you look at this final of the stage and the hill of 6 kilometres, with the percentage being quite good, you know, kicks up to 13% and then 9%, 7% most of the time. It's the place where you can do a lot of damage, and just wait till they keep on riding with this breakaway, hold, you know, a nice advantage 4 or 5 minutes hopefully as they go into the final climb, and that's where you can, you know, go for a stage victory. It's not looking like he can do it here unless he's feeling extraordinarily strong for some reason.
Down and control the pace on the front. It's been a tough couple of weeks for that team, but plenty of motivation with the performances of Vincenzo Nibali. Certainly looks equal to looks well able to justify their efforts with his performances at the end of the mountain stages. Slow-mo at the back of the group, Danilo Honda at the back for Radio Shack. And meanwhile, up front, Robinson Chalapud, who's been up the road quite a bit. He's been challenging in the mountains competition. He's been up the road for in long breakaways as well. And he's got a teammate in the breakaway, his GC leader on the team, Natapuma. So he'll pick up a bottle for him as well. What a performance we saw from Giovanni Visconti a couple of days ago on the mountain, now 30 years of age. What I didn't realise at the time was, of course, he shares a birthday with Marco Pantani, so it was he was motivated. He was well aware of sharing a birthday with Pantani, and it was up to the Pantani monument, so he drew some inspiration from that as he went towards his first stage victory. 3 times a national champion, and of course the other interesting statistic from it, interesting coincidence, was that he had retired on stage 15 of last year's Giro, and endured a difficult few months. He had some sort of issues that prevented him from riding his bike for a few months, where he was seemed to suffer from panic attacks and all sorts of difficulties, and it really took him a long time to get back. Then he had a suspension, of course, for his association with Dr. Michele Ferrari, and then came back this year, he says, rejuvenated. And it was a very emotional win for Visconti on that climb, and very unexpected and very wonderful performance too from him. One of those epic stages to the Galibier, and I think the weather, the riders won't have liked the weather, but it's definitely given him a story for his grandchildren.
Yes, and I suppose the way he won the stage as well, it was interesting, because He wasn't maybe the strongest one, looking one of the strongest one as we see him there, just with the team car from the Moby-Star team. But he calculated well, experience. He just went out, and there was a little bit of, you know, a battle between Peter Winning and Pirazzi. We could see them; they were marking each other a bit, and we did see it a bit later as well. So he went at the right moment, because I think they were starting to play around a bit, and when the riders are not working really well together, not pulling together, then you can lose more time than you gain with 3-4 riders out in front. He went alone, and he just concentrate as going, you know, as strong as possible, and you know, you can make your effort on the steeper parts, you can, you know, knock it off a little bit, but then on the easier sections you can put in a bit more of an effort. On the flat sections, really push on, and he hung on well. In fairness, I think he had a lot of energy left in the final to be able to get up that climb in the conditions as well, after being out there for so long.
Yeah, stunning performance. 3 times national champion, as I said, and could well be an important member of the Italian team for the World Championships in Florence on a very hilly course this September. Speaking of hills, a little leg breaker for the 22 riders up front. Danilo De Luca sets the tempo on the front. And De Grief has managed to get in there for a lot of Belisol. We saw him on the front of the GC group trying to get out of it as they hit the lower slopes of the Telegraph on Sunday afternoon and onto the Galibier, but it didn't work out from them, but he's managed to infiltrate the break today.
Yes, and when you look at the general classification, he is in a position at 18 minutes 37, get into the break, and you can leapfrog up the general classification quite a bit if the break succeeds. But on Sunday he was trying to get out of the group of big favourites, which was going along at a strong pace, being set by Astana. Very difficult to ride away in the in the final 15 kilometres in an uphill finish, and I think the only way he's going to improve in the general classification is by getting into breaks, and he will be allowed, because when you're just at 18 minutes 30, well then they'll allow you to get away in the breakaways. But of course you have to be with the men who are not danger, and today is the one where Damiano Caruso is the real danger one, just under 10 minutes. That's a little bit too close for comfort, and that's the reason we see Astana keeping the control of the things at around the 5 minutes, and it's been like that for quite a while now. 4.5 minutes, 5 minutes, it looks like they're going to keep the lid on it at that advantage.
De Luca we just saw on the front has company in this group, of course, in the form of Matteo Rabottini, who's going very well indeed himself. He was involved in that long breakaway on Sunday. The two Vini Fantini riders just exchanging a bit of a conversation there. And De Luca will be desperate to come up with a win, and I think he might be man to watch late on. If this group arrive at that final climb, you can be sure that between them, De Luca and Rabottini will be cooking something up for the other riders on that hill.
Yes, and I think we could see there on that little bit of a drag, which is a short one, but he was riding on the front at a nice pace. Just try and get everybody together. If you ride too slow, well then you get somebody who will go on the attack, as we have seen already, and that's what you don't want in this group, because if they start attacking each other out of this leading group, well then 22 riders, you could get 5 or 6 going on ahead, the others trying to chase them down, and that's where they could lose the possibility of going all the way to the end. And De Luca, I think, make a nice pace on the climb, try and keep his mind together, keep working as we are at the moment, and get to the final climb, and that's where I think we could see the stage being won by the stronger riders. The ones have that little bit more energy left, they can really push on that final climb of the day.
Well, the camera focusing there on Mark Cavendish in his red points jersey. The gap now gone out over 5 minutes, 5 minutes and 10 seconds. At what point, this doesn't worry Astana at all, really. I mean, they'll be comfortable enough with 5 minutes for that group out front. They won't even be devastated if the group stay away to the finish, as long as they're, they've still controlled the other GC contenders. So at what point does that gap become such that we need to see Omega Pharma quick step on the front if they have genuine ambitions for Mark Cavendish today?
Well, I think Omega Pharma can see Astana's not going to close down this one. They're going to hold it at that 4.5 minutes, 5 minutes, and you can see the reason with Caruso at just under 10 minutes in general classification, and they're making the calculation. If the tactic within Omega Pharma is to try and ride in the end, well, they're going to start riding before the hill, because if they allow to the hill at 5 minutes, well then it's going to be difficult to close it down after that, because the amount of distance to the finish from the top of the hill is only 17.5 kilometres, and you're certainly not going to close down 3.5 or 4 minutes in that part. So I think we will see Omega Pharma starting to ride in the next 10 or 15 kilometres. If they're going to have a go for stage victory, they will have to put some men up there with Astana and try and just take this gap down gradually before we get to the final climb. They would need to be at 1.5 minutes behind this breakaway on the final climb to really secure the situation and try and get it all together for a sprint finish.
Well, why don't Astana knock it off completely? I mean, 9:57 is the closest danger man on general classification. Best placed in the breakaway is Damiano Caruso of the Cannondale squad, 18th overall at 9 minutes and 57 seconds. So they can afford to give almost 10 minutes to this group. Why don't they just sort of take a rest for a little while?
Well, I think if you knock it off here and you allow it to go to 10 minutes, you must remember there's 22 up in the breakaway, and if the breakaway here that yes they've got 10-12 minutes, well then they will give them a big morale boost. They will say the Peloton are struggling, and they will all start pushing on, and it can be a difficult one then to rectify. If nobody takes it up, well then you're the one who have to go back to the front and admit you've made a mistake in the tactic here, and they don't want to do that. They just want to keep riding at this pace, keep it at 5 minutes, and that's pretty comfortable for Astana. But if it goes to 12 minutes, well then you really have to up the pace and push your men on, and they don't want to risk that. But you're always hoping as Astana that some of the sprinters teams want, to take it up, and you'll be waiting. I think at this moment they'll be thinking, or back in the cavalcade, the team cars will be going beside each other and saying, well, are you going to take it up, guys? Are you going to try and go for the stage victory here? But it's always, tactics, and there's always bluff back in the team cars as there is in the front end of the peloton.
All right. So sustained discomfort at this point is preferable to horrible searing pain later on if you realise you've let it go out too far away.
Well, on biking, when you ride at 85%, you can ride for a long time like that. But when you have to ride close to 100%, it's hurting a lot. You don't last as long. You put the riders under more pressure for the days to come. It's also, much more tiring on the riders. Fatigue is a problem. So the way they're riding at the moment, for those guys, it's not, putting them under pressure. Although they will have ride a long number of kilometres in the front today, but at the rate they're riding at the moment, I think they're comfortable enough with that, and it looks like they are going to continue. But they will be hoping that there will be teams get interested, and at this 5 minutes, it's certainly, possible to pull back the breakaway, and that's the reason they're keeping it around that 4.5, 5 minutes to entice the other teams to take it up also.
Well, Ben Headley says Cav is wearing the normal vented helmet, not the aero version. Suggests he's not interested in today's stage. So that's an interesting bit of sleuthing. It is red, of course, so maybe he's just wearing it because it's red and goes with his red points jersey. Or maybe he just he's absolutely sure it's not going to rain between now and the end of the stage, in which case he's a brave man indeed to forecast that. At the moment, though, it's great weather conditions, although you can see the road surface tells us that it has been raining, as indeed it has been throughout this Giro d'Italia on these roads. 5 minutes 21 seconds now for the 22 riders out front as they work their way towards Ivrea. You're very welcome back. It's stage 16 of the Giro d'Italia. 238 kilometers for the riders today as they make their way from Valois in France to Ivrea in the Piedmont region, home of the Olivetti Corporation, and the bunch are lined out, one big long crocodile, and they're being headed up by the Astana team. They've got a bit of a dig out just in the last few moments from a rider from Radio Shack, not represented in the 22 riders out front that now have a slightly narrowed advantage of just under 5 minutes. It's been hovering around about 5 minutes and 20 seconds in the last 10k or so. And now Katusha also helping out. Katusha and Radio Shack aiding the cause of Astana as they try to close down the gap to the 22 riders out front. This is the scene at the back of the bunch. 2 riders retired today. Martin Winans of the Blanco squad didn't sign on. Taylor Finney did start, but unfortunately he's been forced to retire. Desperately disappointing news for the man from the United States. PMC rider has been suffering with saddle sores, and they just, well, they got him in the end, and that's an absolute shame for Taylor Finney. We hope he can regroup and perhaps think about the Tour de France in July. 4 minutes and 51 seconds as Verdugo in the breakaway. Not a factor now, 34 years of age, the Spaniard. Not a factor overall, I say, but certainly a factor in the breakaway. Working hard in there, as indeed are his 21 colleagues. Just see Danny Pate just going up the outside for Sky. Interesting, the Pate's in there. We haven't seen too much representation from Sky in the breakaways in the first couple of weeks. Sean, any change of tactic there, or is it just he's been let off the leash?
Well, I think there's a change of tactic. In the first week there was nobody from Sky. I don't think they were even trying to get into the breakaway, so it's a change to see somebody up there. And I suppose today is a stage where, to put a man into the breakaway, it's not going to have any effect on the team Sky with the third man who ran in general classification. There's enough riders back there to, you know, to look after him, and there will be always, you know, 4 or 5 riders about him to keep him in a good position as we come to that final climb of the day, to make sure he's well up there and keep him to the front end of the peloton. So why not put a man up in the breakaway and see what happens? And I think it's a stage, you know, pay it. He could be up there at the very end of the stage if the break is allowed, but we see now that in the peloton there's a big up in pace, and it's just lined out, one line here and little gaps appearing at the back, and this,
look at that, they're going out the back at the
this
back,
advantage will come down quickly, because when you see that it's going to, you know, 4:41 at the moment, it will drop very quickly. There's, you know, little gaps everywhere in the group all the way after the first 60 or 70 riders.
Oh, they're absolutely lined out, and guys letting the wheel go all over the place. So Radio Shack go to the front and scare the hell out of half the bunch with that effort. The break will realise pretty quickly that their advantage has been knocked off back to 4 minutes and 40 seconds. Verduga pops back to his team car and is obviously comfortable with the weather conditions as they are, and hopes that they'll be maintained through to the end of the race. He's not going to hang on to those. He won't be putting them back on. Well, not from his pocket anyway.
Well, the Basques are used to getting a bit of rain, so I think the occasional shower is not going to affect him. Lars Mikkelsen, Saxo Bank, a specialist for the classics, of course. We did see him a number of times, very close in Paris-Roubaix, real good performances, but a real classic specialist.
Classics hard, man, and this is a different sort of difficult for the riders today. Weather's good at last. He's working his way up the outside. Visconti, we saw so much of him on Sunday afternoon, and I think just working his way back up the group. He's been collecting a little bit of food. Benyat and Shausti, of course, is the major target for those riders. They need to keep Shausti in good shape. 10th overall at 6 minutes and 21 seconds, the young Spaniard. And of course 2 riders from the Movistar team in the breakaway today, so no question of Movistar being asked to chase. Not that they would anyway, I think. Rigoberto Urán sporting a nice pair of sunglasses today. Urán sitting in 3rd position overall, 2 minutes and 46 seconds back now. What are his possibilities from now to the end of the race? Is it just about trying to defend a podium position, or do you think we're going to see him trying to attack Vincenzo Nibali to take some time back?
Well, I think the time trial is going to be important, that he can hold on in there and hold on to that position in general classification, and the time deficit that he has got was 1 at 2:46. He's going to maybe try and, you know, limit that, take a bit back on Nibali. He would like to do that, but I think it's going to be difficult, considering it's an all-mountain time trial. It's going to be difficult for all, as we see in Cat 11's here as well. It's going to be the same situation for him, maybe to take some time from Nibali. And after that, I think that's where for Rigoberto Urán there is a possibility the mountain top finishes. If he's in good shape, he could do a lot of damage there, because we did see when he won the stage, he rode away very strongly from the other favourites, but at that point we still had Bradley Wiggins in the race, of course, and he was a bit further out, but now he's become a real danger man in 3rd place. He's not going to be allowed that advantage in the next climbs, but if he's on a good day, he's always a danger man that he can put in a real good performance on the mountaintop finishes especially.
Vincenzo Nibali and Cadel Evans both looking calm and composed, and clearly Cadel has been at the chocolate bars lately. Needs to get as much of that in as he can. Pace has slowed a little bit in the Maglia Rosa group, so it'll condense, and that'll be much to the relief, that little section of intensity. Will have caused a few sore legs, but they'll get back in there safely after that. Lineouts don't last forever, or sometimes you think they're going to. A bit of news during the rest day came from off the race, of course. The retirement of Denis Menchov, former winner of the Giro d'Italia. Surprised so many by announcing his retirement. 35 years of age. Russian rider has been racing with Katusha of late. Twice a winner of Vuelta a España, winner of the Giro in 2009. A couple of appearances on the podium of the Tour de France as well. Last big win was in the Vuelta last year. He took a stage. He's been suffering with a knee injury, but still it was a little bit of a surprise that he announced his retirement. So Denis Menchov no longer in the pro peloton. Cadel Evans is right in there too, though. Former pink jersey in this race, but yet to take a win. Won the Tour de France in 2011, of course, as a one-stage win, and wore the pink jersey back in 2002. And indeed, those rainbow stripes on the sleeves of his BMC jersey indicate that he won the world title in Switzerland a few years ago. Just over 60 kilometers for the riders. 22 riders up front, and the gap has shrunk considerably in the last set of 10 or 15k. Française de Jeu, well, they've been absolutely devastated in this race. It hasn't worked out for them. 3 of their riders have been forced to retire. Nasser Bouhanni was a real contender for the sprints, and right up there for any of the stages that Mark Cavendish was prominent in, with the exception of the last one, of course, because Bouhanni had gone home by then. Sandy Cazar and Arnold Jansson also retired. Jansson was a big disappointment because he was going very well at the time. And so they're down to 6 riders and haven't been all that prominent in the breaks in recent days. So for Française de Jeu, this has become a real test of endurance. Orica Green Edge, 2 representatives in the break today. Peter Weening, as we said, 37th overall at 50 minutes. And right to the fore on Sunday's stage, and his teammate Christian Meyer, as we just saw going through shot there, 145th overall, 2 3/4 hours back. Canadian rider riding himself into form in Giro d'Italia. He's up the road in the break. Robinson Chalapud, we've seen plenty of him, and he will be hoping that this break can at least survive to the bottom slopes of this climb that comes, the climb of Andrade. Starts with about 24 kilometers to go, and the top of the hill comes with 18.5 kilometers to go. It's 6 kilometers with an average of 8.4%. And Sean, Radio Shack and Katusha have now taken responsibility for the chase.
Yes, surprising that they are panicking, and we can see there Kieselowski, of course, Robert Kieselowski, he's at 10th place in the general classification at 6:42, and Caruso is in 18th place, as we mentioned, from Canada at 9:57. So, you know, he's going to move up in the general classification. But I'm surprised that they're panicking at this stage of the race, when you consider there's so much to do in the final week of this one. And you look at the place of Kieselowski, you know, 11th place in the moment. It's not that, you know, he's losing a place in the top 3 or 4 of the general classification, but they want to take it up. They don't want him to move up too close, and maybe they feel that, yes, Kieselowski can you know, do something into this race, but still at 11th, it's surprising to keep him up just for that place in general classification.
And Brian Nevin tells us that congratulations are in order for Sean Kelly, because for the 2nd day in a row, the An Post Sean Kelly team have taken victory in the latest stage of An Post Ross. Sam Bennett has apparently just won into Listowel, so well done to Sam. 2 days in a row, the team are going well.
Yes, well, yesterday, of course, they won their 1st stage, which Archibald, the New Zealand rider. I think Sam Bennett and a group of riders are in that, and he sacrificed for him yesterday, so maybe it could be the same situation today, and that's what you need in a team, and especially with a young team of riders like we have got. You know, you're developing those riders, and to get them to work together, work for each other, and you know, one race, one day they work for one guy, and then the following day it's another guy, and when it works out, of course, well then it's brilliant, and it just gives them morale to all the team. And going forward as well, you have to be able to work. If you're going to be a great rider in the team, you still have to work at occasions for riders, but if you're only just an average rider, sometimes you're going to be up there in a situation they're going to have to work for you, but vice versa, when it comes about, you have to be able to do it, and it's nice to see. And it looks to be that the form is good with the team, and you know, winning 2 stages, it's they're on a good roll.
Well, this man on screen there, Danny Pate, just went through shot, finished second in the Ross a number of years ago by just a second, if memory serves. His focus on much bigger things at the moment, though. The Giro d'Italia, these riders out front, their lead is shrinking fast. So what's the thinking up there?
Game over, they're thinking. And it's
do you think we'll start seeing some attacks in there? Will they? Some of them will retain ambition, and some of them will think, well, we're coming back, we might as well give up.
Well, I think it's a long ways to the climb. If we're getting the climb, you know, a bit early on the stage, well, then that will be a real launch and plan to try and you know, break up that breakaway and get away from the riders that they do not want in the breakaway. And Caruso, of course, is the one who they're chasing down here. If we could get a group of 5 or 6 riders and leave him behind with the rest of the breakaway, well, then you would have a little bit of a slowdown in the peloton. But there are not many opportunities here before the final climb.
So just over 3 minutes advantage for those 22 riders up front, with the peloton now chasing hard on the way to Ivrea. Welcome back. We're inside the final 60 kilometers of stage 16 from Valloire to Ivrea. There's a big group up front of 22 riders, and they did have an advantage of about 5:21 was the maximum they've had. That's shrunk considerably in the last 20 kilometers or so, as Radio Shack and Katusha have gone to the front. They've drilled it in a big way, and it's lined out again behind, and it's really coming down fast. Inside 3 minutes now for those 22 riders up front as they make their way towards Ivrea. They've got one big lump to get over, the climb of Andreatte, and that starts with about 24 kilometers to go on the stage. 22 riders in there. I'll go through them again once more. They're Ramūnas Navadauskas, already a stage winner in this year's race. He took stage 11. The man from Garmin Sharp is in there. Jackson Rodriguez and Emanuele Sella of Androni Giocattoli, Venezuela. Stefano Perazzi and Edoardo Zardini of Bardiani Valvoli. Wilco Kelderman of the Blanco team. Gorka Verdugo of Euskaltel. Jose Serpa of Lampre Merida, Christian Meyer and Peter Weening of Orica Greenedge, Greg Abol of Vacon Soleil, Iris Kopecky and Jose Harada of the Movistar squad, Danny Pate for Sky, Tobias Ludvigsen of Argus Shimano, Rory Sutherland is in there for Saxo Tinkoff, the Vinny Fantini duo of Danilo De Luca and Matteo Rabatini, Colombians Robinson Chalapud and Darwin Atapuna. Damiano Caruso of Cannondale, the best place overall, 18th position at 9 minutes and 57 seconds, and his presence in there is a lot of the reason that they're absolutely flying on the front. And Francis de Grief, the last man to make it across to this break, he's there for the Lotto Belisol squad. 2.5 minutes, and it's dropping like a stone, and they're not just going to get them before the hill, but well before the hill, the way things are going at the moment. And I can't help thinking that something's going to happen up front, and pretty soon, if this continues to go the way it is. The man on screen there in the blue jersey, Stefano Perazzi, took second at the top of one classified climb that we've had so far in this stage, Col de Montseny. They went over it the other direction to the way they went the other day, and Perazzi took second to Jackson Rodriguez on that hill. Zardini just going through shot for Bardiani Valvoli, 144th overall, just arrives on the front. Iris Kopecky Tall, rangy figure. Italian rider riding with the Spanish-based Movistar team. And now another little lump for these riders to contend with, and that's what's going to make it very, very difficult for Mark Cavendish. It's not just that final hill, but the fact that the road to that final hill is extremely lumpy. Lots of ups and downs throughout the day to really take it out of the legs. And of course, after that final hill of Andreatti, they have a 10-kilometre descent, then they've got around about 7 odd kilometres to the line. And a bit of activity here. So we see Rabatini going for it. And sets up De Luca for the intermediate sprint. Perazzi also gets involved. And these three riders have established a bit of an advantage. Do you think they'll continue to press on? Seems unlikely. So the Vini Fantini and Bardiani Valvoli teams
not happy
are the ones showing the ambition. Do you think they're interested in pressing on a little bit from that?
No, I think it looks like that Perazzi, they did not seem happy with him there. We could see it looked like De Luca that just went by him and moved over very quickly on Perazzi. Maybe Perazzi is not contributing in the breakaway and just sprinting for the mountain classification, and possibly they're not happy with that because he is gaining a lot of points out here today, so they feel that he should be riding equal as everybody else in the group of 22 riders. I reckon that's the problem, but there is definitely a little bit of friction between them there because for Vini Fantini, for the two of them to go for the mountain classification, I think there's a little bit of a problem there at the moment.
Well, the greatest friction is likely to be between the... look at that. It's not a big gap at all now, is it? It's shrunk considerably. Of course, the two Italian squads that came in on invitations from the race organisers, Vini Fantini and Bardiani Valvoli, their entire season's based on performance in the Giro d'Italia. For Vini Fantini, we're going very well in the overall with Sant'Ambrogio. They would like a stage win though. Sant'Ambrogio sitting at 4th overall, 2:47 behind, and just a couple of seconds off the podium at the moment, and that would be an excellent performance. So Katusha-led Peloton making its way to that intermediate point, and the Peloton is crowded around them. 2:09 was the last time check we got. And it hasn't changed significantly within the last few kilometres. Sue Lucas wants to know if English language is used mostly in the Peloton. More and more, and a lot more than it was in your day, Sean. It's English would be the lingua franca, that'd be the term. But
yeah.
There'd be a lot more Italian in this race.
Well, there will be a lot more Italian, certainly, but still, there's, you know, if you look at the list of participants in this event this year, there's a lot of English-speaking riders here, and I think there'll be a lot of English in the bunch. Where in my time, when you competed in the Tour of France or any of the races, you know, somebody speaking English, you would actually look round and see who it would be because there was so little. But now that's totally changed in the past 20 years. As we came through the intermediate sprint point, I was calling it a mountain classification, but it was for the intermediate sprints, and that's the reason that De Luca and his teammate from Vini Fantini were not happy with Perazzi going for that sprint.
Yeah, because you can't take everything, can you? Mustn't be greedy. And even got the transmission going on that bike, so beautiful scenes on the road to Ivrea today. 238 kilometres in total for the riders. We're coming up to the 30 miles to go point as the riders ride in turn, and they settle back into the groove of trying to maintain that advantage. Just over 2 minutes between those 22 riders and the chasing bunch. Chasing bunch behind has been led for much of the stage by the Astana squad, but up front of late we've seen Katusha and Radio Shack. Rory Sutherland of Saxo Tinkoff, and now we go back to Vinny Fantini team car. Danilo De Luca has been so active in this race, but hasn't come up with the stage win that he so dearly would like. A self-styled killer. A colourful figure in the world of cycling, to say the least. And he's been prominent in this race for so many years, no longer an overall contender. Certainly a contender for stage honours. Ben Higgins wants to know what's their thinking. Is it game over? Are we looking at a bunch finish today? Would you commit to that this early?
Well, I think you know, they're starting to lose the confidence of the breakaway surviving up front. That's his show when when you're made aware back in the main peloton, two teams, Radio Shack and Katusha, really chasing, and then you're being pulled back, your advantage taken down very quickly. It comes to a situation then where you have to go on the attack, and we can see here they're going to have to start doing that now, because if they continue here, as Danny Pate puts in an attack, you have to try and get rid of the men who are causing or the reason for the bunch to be chasing that breakaway of 22 down.
So now Danny Pate and Rory Sutherland have decided to kick this one off in a big way. Two big men, big strong men, capable of rolling it on at a very, very fast rate on flat roads. And this is relatively flat roads for these riders today. Just over 2 minutes advantage for this group over the peloton as riders try to make their way over. Is it Meyer or is it Weaning? So it looks like one of the Orica Green Edge riders toiling his way to get to these two riders up front. And that has sparked furious activity back in the group.
Meyer, Peter Weaning, we can see there's much more roll on the bike when he's pushing. He moves a lot on the bike, where this guy is not as
well, we're talking about the lingua franca in the peloton now. English language is the language amongst these three riders. The US, Canada and Australia represented up front as riders clip over in ones and twos, and that sparked panic amongst the 22. And will they all make it back? Or will they have to settle into the chase? Will any riders get dropped? Was there any dead wood in there? Oh, it doesn't look as if they've got winning advantage at the moment in terms of winning the race amongst the breakaway contenders. Inside 2 minutes as well. So this sort of activity can't go on for too long if that group is likely to stay out front. And they've settled into the pain. Christian Meyer of Orica Green Edge, the man just going through shot there was Danny Pate. Sella attempts to drag them over. Navardowskis, who's had great legs so far in this year's Giro, already a stage win, goes to the front and keeps the pace high, because there's all sorts of cracks in there. Navardowskis, winner of stage 11 on his own, soloed away from Daniel Oss of the BMC team. And Zardini had a long chase to get in there from Bardiani Valvoli. Was himself and Francis de Grief were the last men to join the breakaway, and it took them a long old slog to get there too, so he could well be feeling the effects of those efforts. Perazzi too is towards the back of the break. Meanwhile, all looks very cool, calm and collected for the top three men on general classification: Vincenzo Nibali, Cadel Evans and Rigoberto Urán. Looking unconcerned as the break whittles down the advantage. Sorry, the bunch whittles down the advantage of the break. So we were expecting some sort of activity. 22 riders, just too big a group really. And with the gap closing fast, and that's the reason why. Absolutely piling it on at the front of the bunch. Katusha have been ordered to the front to chase, so too have Radio Shack, and the reasoning being that Radio Shack have the 11th place rider on general classification, that's Robert Kieselowski, and Katusha have the 12th place man on GC, that's Yuri Trofimov, and those riders' positions close to the top 10 have been threatened by the presence of Damiano Caruso of the Cannondale squad in the breakaway. He's 18th overall at 9 minutes and 57 seconds, and riders put a lot of store indeed in a top 10 in GC in a Grand Tour. Pate goes again. It's Rodriguez this time that closes it up for Androni. Pate knocks it off to see what he's done. And Rodriguez just glass cranks it through, so those riders are not going to persevere with that, and the group is still pretty much together and no longer working as one. So unless something happens quick, this could be game over for the break in its entirety. And just as I say it, Danilo De Luca. Something's got to give here. Caruso's showing plenty of ambition. I'd say if he dropped back to the bunch, the break's advantage would just fly back up again.
Yes, the man from Cannondale Pro Cycling, he is the one who is causing the problem for the bunch to chase down here, and you know, he's very much up front, and that's not going to help the situation. If you get into a group with you know, 6 or 8 riders here and he is in that, well then the bunch will continue. You have to get a break formed without him being up there, and that way when the bunch will catch up with the riders you will hope to leave behind, it will, you know, calm down once again, but it's not going to happen if he's still out in front in the breakaway.
Are you surprised to see that riders are so ambitious to defend an 11th or a 12th place on GC or a top 10 in GC?
Yes, I'm very surprised at this stage. You know, when you look at the situation, the advantage for the breakaway, the way Astana were riding, I think there was no reason to panic there. But you know, the teams, we can see there the reason. Radio Shack and Katusha taking it up because they're men up there in the general classification, you know, starting to maybe get into a situation where they would lose a place, and it's early days of that yet, considering what's left in this race. If there was only, you know, a small mountain stage to come, well then general classification might not change, but I feel Friday, Saturday's big stages, there are going to be a lot of changes there, and I don't think, you know, you should be really pushing your team on the front to control for a place in you know, in 11th place down in the general classification.
Well, one way or another, they're certainly chasing hard, absolutely killing themselves out front, the Katusha squad, and causing lots of anxiety in that bunch. You can be absolutely sure of it. Look at the way it's lined out in a big way. Look at the way that we see the attack coming once more, this time from Rabatini. Rabatini of Vinny Fantini. Superb effort from him on the stage to Galibier. Won a stage in last year's Giro d'Italia as well, of course, and don't forget, of course, he was the winner of the mountains classification, so the Giro's been good to him, and he fancies another day in the sun. Kopecky. Colombian riders well to the fore as the road rises ever so slightly. Inside 2 minutes now. 45 kilometers, and Danny Pate made a couple of big efforts, so now he's at the back of the group and hoping that it stays together until he recovers. The Maglia Rosa group of Vincenzo Nibali is being dragged along at a ferocious pace by the teams of Katusha and Radio Shack. Now Kelderman has a go. And Kelderman has been joined by well, let's get confirmation. One of the Androni riders, was it Rodriguez or Sella? I think it was Sella. Pate still at the back and still suffering. And they're absolutely flying. It's hard to imagine anyone could go faster, but still the advantage of the group has dropped another 15 seconds in the last couple of kilometers.
It's certainly got a bit of urgency on the breakaway. They were, you know, just riding along there at that 4.5 minutes for a long time, but the moment the bunch takes it up and it comes down to 2 minutes, suddenly out front they realise, well, we're going to have to really up the pace here if we have any chance of staying away. And you know, it's in this attacking mode, but they're continuing at a good rate. Sometimes they attack, then there's a little bit of a downtime. They go along for a couple of 100 metres waiting for the next attack, but here it's attack after attack after a very high rate. Still the advantage is coming down, but not majorly quickly, so they have to get a break formed out front with a small number of riders, and that's the only chance of survival for this stage, to get the stage victory out of it.
Now Navradouskas tries his luck, and he knows how to find himself into to get away from a group, because himself and Oss, of course, left a decent sized breakaway and soloed over to Patrick Gretsch. And Navradouskas, wow, what a study of power and speed. Man in perfect harmony with his machine there, and absolutely flying. Verdugo Vuscaltel has joined him, and very quickly the group worked their way back up to him. De Luca is in there. And officials' cars are coming ahead, so we're well inside the 3 minutes. Indeed, 1 minute and 36 seconds the advantage. Navradouskas' number flapping in the breeze, but he won't be aware of that or worrying about it. Perazzi's feeling it a little bit.
Flapping on the rear.
He's flapping around at the back, yeah. He's swinging around. So maybe with Perazzi wasn't bluffing, he just really hasn't got a whole lot of form at the moment. He's been out front in the breakaway, well, so many days, accumulating points for the mountains competition that he's got to be feeling it at this point.
Well, of course, he doesn't like when it goes on the flat at a real fast rate. He doesn't like that at all, and that's where he's suffering. We've seen him a lot of times, you know, on the tail end of the bunch when it's really going fast. And we're in this section now where they're riding 50+ kilometers per hour, and that's the reason we can see him. He's flapping on the rear of the breakaway.
So Sella and Serpa go to the front. Greg Abol has joined them. Serpa shapes to go again. He's out of the saddle, has a little think about it, but here he looks like he's going to have a crack. Well, we could see it from here. Think anyone else spotted it? And Kelderman fancies that one. Well, this is absolutely cracking racing. You want this to go all the way to the line, don't you? But the way things are going, their gap continues to shrink because these huge attacks drag them out 1 second advantage, and then they give away 2 with every stall. Now the reaction. Kelderman has got there. Sella showing plenty of ambition, but well, Kelderman's a big man, isn't he? He's definitely, Sella's the one getting the big shelter. Pate has recovered. Took a few moments at the back and now is soloing across to these 2 riders. So Danny Pate, we saw him suffering a lot in the first week as well, and I suspect it's taken him a week or so to really play himself into this race. He's found his legs, he's in the break today, and he's enjoying his racing, you can be sure of that. Kelderman might as well be riding solo. He's getting no shelter at all from, well, we're not worth a mention from Sella. These 2 riders still working together. Rabatini now at the back. Big stall from that group, so they've given these 3 riders a good old opportunity. Can Pate get over to them?
One of the Vinnie Fantini riders pulling over there, looked like a mechanical.
So will we get a look at that as Jackson Rodriguez, oh, what was his thinking there? Was he just covering one? He's got a teammate up front. Was he looking to try and get away? That won't go down too well. Meanwhile, the pace is relentless on the front of the bunch. None of these attacks and stalls. They're just grinding down the advantage now. 1.5 minutes to the good. Radio Shack and Katusha, much to the great relief of Astana. They're the ones that have decided to take responsibility for controlling the gap to the group in front and indeed closing it down. Inside 1.5 minutes to the good for this breakaway group that have fractured quite a lot in recent times, and one of the Vinifantinis is coming back to the bunch. Okay, join us for this great race again after these.